Welcome to the Advisor Summit, the podcast where financial advisors gain analytical insights and tactical strategies from the industry's top minds. Each episode, we bring you exclusive conversations with founders, C-suite leaders, and industry innovators, uncovering the trends, tools, and techniques shaping the future of financial advising. Whether you're looking to scale your practice, enhance client relationships, or stay ahead of market trends, the Advisor Summit is your go-to source for expert guidance and actionable takeaways.
Hi, we are so excited today to have Brad Gotto on the podcast. Brad and I met several years ago. He's been an awesome client of Track That Advisor, and we're here today to pick his brain. So, Brad, thank you for being here.
Absolutely. I'm actually really excited to do this. It's always fun to talk to you. So
Brad, I know it's been a good road. So first, I want to just start off with you kind of telling the audience, what is your story? Where did you come from? How did you get into advising? Where are you based out of? We'll let you
yeah.
run the show first.
Um Obviously these stories can get really long, so I'll try to truncate it as much as I possibly can. I never ever set out to be a financial advisor. I couldn't spell financial advisor. I didn't even know what they did. The day I got my job at a big box firm, it was in 2006, and I called my wife and I said, I got the job. I'm a financial advisor. And she said, that's great. What do you do? And I said, I have no idea. So that's how I started. Um, And so worked at a big box firm until 2009, left, went to the independent broker-dealer space, and started an independent firm, which is Fiat Wealth Management, back in 2009. Had two business partners. Long story, ended up selling out of that after 18 months. Sold my shares to one of the two partners and went to the FMO world, actually. And prior to going to the FMO world, I couldn't spell FMO. Um, or could I spell like fixed index annuity? I didn't even know really what they were. Coming out of the big box store world,
Hmm.
all I knew about indexed annuities was they were the devil. Like they were terrible. Don't use them. Never, ever, ever. And so again, very ironic that I end up, in this independent broker dealer space, and then in this FMO world. Obviously, had to learn a lot about indexed annuities really quickly. That was my job. I was a wholesaler on the indexed annuity side specifically. The FMO I worked at just happened to specialize, and so we had life guys, life insurance guys, annuity guys, and gals. And so I was an annuity guy, and I had never looked at an indexed annuity in my life, let alone barely a fixed annuity. And they handed me a phone and said, start dialing. And I'm like, for what? To
What am I
who? And
selling?
I don't know what I'm selling. So I did that for 9 years. And it was at the end of 2019 that I needed back in the retail side. So January 1st, 2020 was my first full-time, like full-time job back
Hmm.
in the retail side. And interesting enough, ended back at Fiat. Ended up buying back into the company I'd sold to my business partner. He was the sole owner at that point. Bought half the company back from him. We became joint owners of the firm in 2019, but I came back to work in 2020, and here we are. And so it's been an interesting journey. Since then, we stood up our own RIA. So I've went from my words, my opinion, what I call the hell, purgatory, and heaven version of our industry. I started a big captive company. That was I didn't know it was hell until I left. And I went to an independent broker dealer. I thought that was amazing. I didn't know that there was an even better world out there than that. That was purgatory. And now in the independent RIA space. So stood up our own RIA. So Fiat is an RIA up here in the Twin Cities area. We're in a suburb of the Minneapolis, St. Paul area. And yeah, I mean, that's the short version.
Correct. And you started in 2020, what interesting timing there.
It was terrible. I mean, I got into this industry in 2006 and I thought I was pretty rock star stuff because I couldn't spell financial advisor. The markets are roaring,
Hmm.
so you could throw a dart at a dartboard and make money. And then very
You're in
shortly
it.
into my career, 08, 09 happened. And specifically it started in October of 07. And it was end of 06 for me. So I was barely a year into the industry and the market started to fall apart. And 53% in 16 months at the big box firm I was at, we had uh, a money market account that our clients used a lot that they could write checks out of. So we were basically cashiering and banking for our clients as well. That money market broke the buck. Like people lost money in cash and froze. Like it froze their money. And so very early in my career, I had experienced the worst financial
Uh,
crisis since the Great Depression. And I had clients whose checking accounts, quote unquote, were frozen.
mhm.
And then I left, decided to come
I
back,
come out of here.
and COVID hits. So don't follow me around. Like
Right?
my
The
timing is
timing.
not great. It's not great.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Wow. But you're thriving now. I mean, I can attest to that. So I mean,
Well, we're
you've made
trying.
it work. You've done an incredible job. Incredible job.
Yeah.
Um, so you went from an FMO. Now, obviously, you
Mhm.
have your own RIA. Talk to me about seeing both sides. Most people, I know several people who've kind of done both, right? They start the
Yeah.
IMO and then they become the advisor, or vice versa. But talk to me a bit just about that journey. A lot of people don't want to talk openly about IMOs, FMOs.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a very touchy subject, but I think that it is important to have the conversation. So, what is your opinion on it? What makes a good one? What should people look for?
Yeah.
What should people look out for? What is your opinion there?
There's there's a lot to that question, right?
I know.
I'm gonna start with the first part of the question, which was I've gotten to see both sides. So it's an absolute blessing for me because what I realized after I had worked in the FMO world for about a year and a half, was that when I had left the big, the security, and I'm not saying the big box, I know I called it hell, but like it was fine. Um, Tongue
Compliance.
firmly
Just saying.
planted in cheek, right? Like I
Yeah.
already told you these are my opinions. There's no advice in here.
Yes.
So it's and left to become independent. I mean, for all intents and purposes, we started our own business. It just happened to be in the financial advisory space, right? And so we were entrepreneurs overnight. And
Hmm.
so 18 months later, I sell. Part of the reason I sold is because I just had my first kid. It wasn't going as well as I had hoped. And so I needed health insurance, needed something more secure. And so
Stability. Yeah.
off I go to an FMO, which I'd never even heard of. Um, and it was a massive blessing. Like the, I don't want to like get too much into the two untouchable topics of politics and religion, but like for me, it was a God moment, and I didn't know it until
Hmm.
now. Like I never planned on being there that long. I was only there for 9 years because I had such a great setup, such a great boss, such a great
Hmm.
situation, loved what I was doing. But a year and a half in, what I realized was I was at this advisor's office. He had done an event for a couple of days where advisors were kind of watching what he was doing, and he asked my opinion of what he was doing. And I said, I love it. And I love everything about what you're doing. And he said, why? And I said, I don't know why. I can't put my finger on it, but I just love it. And I said, but if I figure it out, I'll get back to you. And it was later that night. Like I had a light bulb moment that still impacts me to this day. It's
Hmm.
driven the way we've built Fiat. And that was what I loved about what he was doing was he was a really, really good business owner.
Hmm.
It just happened to be a financial advisor, not a
Yep.
financial advisor trying to figure out how to run a business. And that is why in the first 18 months I helped start Fiat before I'd sold out. The reason we didn't have the success I thought we were going to have is because I didn't know how to run a business. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I did, and I never even thought of it that way. So not only did I not know what I was doing, I didn't even have the thought that that's what I was doing, that my primary job was to run a company. My product was financial advising.
Hmm.
But I didn't know how to be CEO, CMO, CFO, COO. Like I didn't know any of that stuff. And so I had 9 years of sitting with independent financial advisors all over the country. And my job was to wholesale fixed annuities to them. But what I got out of it was a PhD in
Totally.
how to be an independent financial advisor, how to run a company. And so,
Mhm.
Erica, I was sitting in these advisors' offices and not asking questions like, well, how much annuity business do you write? Why do you write your annuities that way? I was like, how do you run your company? Like,
Do it
why
org
did you make
chart.
that decision? Yeah, like exactly. Like advisor comp. How do you pay your advisors? Why do you pay them that way? Why did you hire that person? And I always kind of got made fun of a little bit by these advisors, like, why do you care so much? And because it was
Mhm.
fascinating to me that that's where I failed. Um, and I didn't even realize that's why I failed because it was
Yeah.
a failure. I mean, I didn't sell out of my business because I wanted to. I sold out because I had to.
Yeah.
I had a
Yeah.
little kid on the way and needed to pay bills. And so
Yeah.
when I came back to the retail side, what I told my business partner who had carried the torch for Fiat all by himself for 9 years was I want to be the best business owner that I can be that happens to
Mhm.
be in the financial advisory space. And so that's my focus. And so I knew right when I came back, Erica, that I wanted to be the CEO of the company, not the advisor. And so from
Mhm.
day one, it's been a very purposeful build to kind of get me into that role. Now, it's not the only way to do it. And a lot of advisors want to be advisors, and that's awesome. You're a much better person than I am, because that's a hard deal, hard job. I just, it's
Statistically speaking.
it's brutal.
Yeah.
I just wanted to run the company, and I really, really like the entrepreneurial business owner side of it. And so all that to say, the FMO world to me was a blessing. I got
Mhm.
paid to hang out with advisors, and paid well. Like, it was a great
Mhm.
job. So
Mhm.
now coming back, the FMO to me is a business partner, and a
Yeah.
really important one. Um, Probably one of the key business partners you have as an independent RIA. If you're going to do any insurance business as an RIA, you could make the argument that they're probably the most important business partner you have, because they can make the most impact.
Mhm.
And so I don't take the FMO relationship lightly, because I know the way the world works. I can tell you exactly how the FMO from the inside. Um, and I saw how impactful we were to the advisors we worked with if we had a good relationship. But not every FMO is built for every advisor. You got to know what you need out of a business partner. I think one of the biggest mistakes advisors make when they choose an FMO is they choose on shiny objects, not based
Yep.
on what's going to help them most specifically, based on how they're trying to build their business. Because every FMO has their things that they're good at, right? Or they have,
Mhm.
kind of the market cornered in one area where it's like, look, this is our biggest value prop is this.
Yep.
If that's what your company needs, that's where you should go.
Yeah.
And so very purposeful for me in that type of relationship. But I view him as a business partner the same way. I've since bought Matt out, so I'm the sole owner of the company. But when Matt and I were together as business partners, I looked at the FMO the same way. Like, if you're not what's in the best interest of my company, I just need to go find a different one. Because there's so many of them out there, and so many good ones that have really good value propositions. You just need to find the one that makes the most sense.
And that's you being the CEO, right? Instead of a salesperson. I think people who are the salespeople running the company, shiny objects are really fun, and they're very enticing and lucrative.
Yeah.
But yet you step back and we look at the CEO as a whole of that is your job is defining vision and where are we going and placing partners where they need to be. So that's a
And
good,
more
I mean,
often
that's
than
even a good
not, the
encouragement.
shiny
Yeah.
object is short term.
Yeah.
Usually shiny
Yeah.
objects get dull, and so as
Hmm.
a one of the things that I've tried very hard, and you've helped with on the data side, which I'm sure we're going to get to, uh, is always trying to have that 5 to 10 year mindset. Like, the way I can best help my company from an executive level is trying to be 5 years in front of my company. That's how I can benefit my employees the most. That's how I can benefit my clients the most. And usually shiny objects don't last.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. They're fun for a second. And I
they
mean, that's
are,
why some people are like notorious for shopping around, right? And they kind of switch
for
and switch
sure.
and switch. And it's like, well, if you can develop the 5 to 10 year plan, you're going to really know long term what works. So,
Yeah.
thank you. I think that that's, again, not too many people talk about it. I think it's an important subject, and you have a ton of knowledge on it. So, appreciate that,
Yeah.
to those 2 cents on that topic. But as we move into data, you kind of segued us there. Talk to me about data. Talk to me about the importance of it in your office. When did it become important, and why? Like, did you go through something that said it was important, or like you always knew it was important, but you just didn't do anything with it? Talk to me about your segue into
Yeah.
how we met.
Coming back into the retail world the way that I did, I knew it was important because I'd watched other advisors flounder without it.
Yeah,
Um, but I suck at it.
you're not
So
alone.
there's a problem, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I knew that. I just didn't know how to fix it. And so here's what I did know. I knew that if I kept putting money into our marketing machine, that we were going to grow. And I knew at the small scale that we were at, that I could get away with mistakes. I could get away with not knowing my data very well. I could get away with all that stuff. And so maybe I'm not the most efficient, but because of my size, I could make those mistakes. I also knew that as we grew, that wasn't going to remain. In fact, if you study the RIA space in any detail, what you find out is that between that 400 or 500 million of asset mark and a billion is where RIAs go to die.
Mm.
because the complexity starts to catch up to them. And if they don't have systems and processes built at that time, those inefficiencies that worked out when you were a nice small little company don't work anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, if you're caught flat-footed or on your back foot, and trying to keep that marketing machine moving, because we all know, every advisor listening to this knows, you can't shut it down. It's a train. Like, and the second you shut it down, it slows down. Like, it's so hard to get it moving again. So if you want to keep that moving, it's really hard to build systems to catch up to that if you're at that 500 million, 600 million, type mark. Much easier to build when you're smaller and have those systems
Mm-hmm.
built so that when you get to these levels, you don't become a statistic.
Yeah.
Because that's,
Well, and our
again,
profit margin is so high. Like to your point, the
without
profit margin is so
question.
high in this industry, and so
Yep.
it creeps up so fast. To your point, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh shoot, the wheels are coming
It's
off,
funny
and
that
we're
you say that,
huge
Erica,
now.
because I say that to people all the time. We can afford to make mistakes. It's not like the restaurant business where you're working on such thin margin that,
Yes.
like, you have a bad month or two and it's just over. You got to shut the doors. We get to make those mistakes. The problem is the mistakes get more expensive the bigger you are as a firm. And for the advisors that aren't watching those efficiencies, the net income isn't following the top line. The top line may be going up, but the bottom line isn't proportionately. And so you get to this point where, yeah, you're making good income as the owner, but because your top line is so high, that mistake becomes so big, all of a sudden it can wipe out all your net income with just one little. And that's why there's that danger zone between that 500 million and a billion. And that's kind of,
Mm.
from a company perspective, that's kind of where we're at, is at the beginning of our death curve. So
So you're
um,
ready for it.
I got to be honest, I didn't know you existed. And it was a friend of mine who's in this space, that doesn't market at all, but subscribes to Kitsis. And I don't know if you're on a podcast, article, or whatever. He forwarded it to me and said, "Hey, I think you should look into this." And
Mm.
I thought it was a joke. I was like, "What? Somebody does this? Like, wait a minute."
What kind
Like,
of
it literally
weirdo
was
does
like one of those moments where I was like, "Come on." Like, um, do you need me to need? Like, you couldn't have entered our picture at a more perfect
Hmm.
time. We were a much smaller firm then, but it was already becoming a problem for us, because as I have sub advisors, I don't take any of the clients. And so, because I'm trying to just be the CEO as much as I possibly can. So I got multiple advisors doing marketing, doing all kinds of marketing, direct leads, seminars, referral type events, all that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, when I send my dollars out into the ether, if I don't know how they're coming back to me in any meaningful way, other than the fact that I had just had money in my bank account at the end of the month, hopefully, that's not a business. It's
Yep.
not. Um, and so, data to me is, it takes the emotion out of decisions. Data allows you to make objective decisions on the health of your company, which trickles down to the health of your employees, which trickles down to the health of your clients. It's just really important as a leader to be making good decisions. And I just don't think you can make good decisions without empirical data.
Yeah. So talk to me about we met and I came out there. That's when I was still
Mhm.
doing office visits. And we kind of implemented some processes, helped you get the dashboards, all the reporting, all of that. I mean, your team took it on like champs. But talk about the difference that's happened over the last few years, right? So when
Yeah.
we first met and having it and then seeing it versus now, you guys are heavily involved. You're trying to understand it. We're changing processes. We're looking through
Yep.
things to make sure that we're better. Maybe like on a scale of 1 to 10, like how were you using it? Were you not when we first came on, and how you felt about it to where you're at now? And just some of the benefits you've seen, or any specific examples that you're using data to drive decisions now.
Yeah. Um, I would say the first year, on a scale of 1 to 10, we were a 2 or 3. Now you were helping create the data, which is amazing, but data is only good if you do something with it.
Truth.
Um, and I realized very quickly, Erica, that for me personally, like, if it was going to be up to me to monitor the data and to mine the data for meaningful information to impact change, it was never going to happen.
Yeah.
I white knuckled it for a while. I just realized I was really
Yeah.
bad at it. I didn't like it. And so one thing we did to kind of stave off my um, inability or lack of talent in that area, was not only do we obviously use Track That Advisor, but we were paying for these quarterly reviews so that you would help us mine the data.
Yep.
And that worked for a while. And we still do it, and I still
Yep.
value it, and I want that outside opinion. But we've gotten to a point where now I have an employee whose primary and sole responsibility is to watch our data and tell me what to do with the data. I have a whole employee dedicated to that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's how far we've come is like, I didn't know my numbers to you help me figure out what the numbers are, to now I basically have somebody who's a scientist that is, trying to mix together the right potions of our numbers and put it together in a meaningful way that we have better outcomes.
Yeah.
And we're still pretty in infancy stage with that. That person's role just became their role at the beginning of this year. But I can already tell you, so I do one-on-ones with my advisors. We meet, some of them weekly, some every other week. I've got dashboards to go through with them. So I get to have, I hate being the bad guy. I hate but I don't have to be, because I just have numbers. And
Yep.
numbers, there's no emotion to it. It's just they are what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a leader, it allows me to make not gut check decisions or how I feel about something, just be data driven. And you know this, one of the things I asked you to do was have some of these hard conversations for me, because I don't
I
like to
did.
do it. And you did.
Yeah.
And it really helps. And so, one, it's always good to have an outside opinion, right? You can't be objective about your own situation. It's impossible. Um, that's not what objectivity is. There's always a subjective, we're all biased about our own stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm the chiefest of sinners in that. I think Fiat's better than everybody. I
Mm.
don't, I literally don't understand why any client would ever do a business anywhere else. But I
Yeah.
would hope that all other advisors feel that way about their company too.
Yeah.
But you can see the problem in that when I voice it out loud. The second I say that
Mm-hmm.
out loud, people are like, that's ridiculous. I know it's ridiculous, but it's also the only reason our company is successful, because I genuinely believe that. But it also immediately emits a blind spot. And so, been very helpful for us to, one, have access to the data, two, use your team to help mine data for us, to have reviews done of our data, to get that third party opinion. And now we're going, to your point, through a whole entire rework of our sales process based on the data. Because what the data tells
Mm-hmm.
us is there's a hole in our sales process,
Mm-hmm.
where we're terrible. Like, we have
Mm-hmm.
some parts of our process that you've confirmed for us we're really good at. And then we
Mm-hmm.
have other parts where we're really not as good.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
So,
I will piggyback on what you said about the new position that you guys have created, because there is a beauty in the outside perspective, but there is something that lacks there. Like, I don't have boots on the ground, right? I
yep,
don't know your advisors. I don't know when they're struggling, when they've had a hard week or a hard month, or who they're sitting in front of, right? I can take these guesses from a numbers standpoint, and that's one thing I'm great at, is people are like, you know our business more than I do, and you've never even set foot
yeah,
in our office. But there's a downside to that, right? And so also bringing that position in house is so healthy, because they have boots on the ground. And so
yeah,
there's a positive and negative to both, and obviously we're going to partner with him in that. um but that is really cool to see you guys moving in that direction, to where don't wait a quarter, right? I mean,
yeah,
you can have weekly reports now, because you're not waiting on us or we're some bottleneck. I'm a huge advocate of it. So I think you guys have gone to like a 10 engagement. I mean, you've got someone in-house doing it. And that's our goal, right? I mean, our goal is for people to like grasp it, understand it, know the importance, and then like just start running and go off on their own
yeah.
track. So um it's been fun.
Well,
It's been fun to see you guys do
any
that.
any kind of good, like, I'm a visionary. That's my, you know, in the EOS model. The
Yep.
Where a visionary shows up in a negative way is gut. I'm making decisions based on gut, and I'm gonna run out in front of my company and all these sorts of things. And so, knowing that and trying to understand the weaknesses, what the data does is it takes some of my gut out of it, and it gives us the ability to check and make sure that that's right, and to make good decisions. I can't even tell you, Erica, what keeps me up at night is this half a billion to a billion. Like, I'm telling you, I've
Mm.
studied it way too much. It's kind of like before you go on vacation and you study, like, you're going to like some country you've never been to, and you like look up every virus they have and every like everything. You're like, you
The
work
crime
yourself
rate.
into a tizzy before you ever get there,
Yep.
and you're like, oh, this is gonna be terrible. Whereas if you actually even did that in your own community, you probably not even want to live where you live. Sometimes you can just know too much. I know way too much
Yep.
about this death zone for RAAs. Um, but one of the things that makes me feel confident is we know our numbers.
Hmm.
Um, And that, I mean, that is a sleep at night factor. To put it into perspective of an advisor, this is my safe money, right? My safe money is my data.
Mm.
It helps me understand that I'm making good decisions, not just in the short term, but to be able to understand the trajectory so that I can build a vision for the company. Okay, if we keep doing what we're doing, I put $1 in the pipe, what's going to fall out is this, that's going to equate to this. So when I put together a 5-year plan for my company and I say we should be at 2 billion in 5 years, as an example, it can be realistic and backed up with data. And so as a CEO, I can't cast a 5-year vision in any meaningful way without
Mm.
that data.
Without doing that. And you're staying ahead of it. And that's the job. It's the job you
Trying.
wanted. So you're doing a great job. It's awesome. Um, so next steps on trucking. The last question we usually kind of round it out with is, where are you trucking? You kind of talked about it a little bit professionally. Like where are you heading personally and professionally? We're gonna kind of wrap it up there. But
Yeah.
that's a big one.
So I kind of alluded to it. We're creeping up
Yeah.
on that half, well, that's not even
Yeah.
true. I'd be disingenuous to say that. We're at about 400 million in assets. When I came back 5 years ago, we were at 27 million. And so we've seen some nice growth over the last 5 years, from 27 to 400. But I fancy us a regional style RIA with, I don't know, 5 to 10 billion. Like there's no reason we
Yeah.
can't do it. We will do it. Um, it's just for me in that, I'm not doing it for the number. My vision for what we're building is for me personally to increase my influence in my community, to promote generosity. Like I really feel like I'm called to be in this industry simply because nobody has a more intimate view into people's finances than their financial advisor,
Yep.
if anybody outside of their own home, right? And it's just my belief, Erica, that the happiest people on the planet are the ones that are generous with their time, with their talents, with their energy, and with their money. And obviously, not too many people know about people's money and if they even can afford or have the money to be generous with. And so, if I can continue to fire myself as an advisor, which I've done almost exclusively now, down to a handful of clients, my goal would be to fire myself as the CEO, be kind of a board member, and just evangelize generosity and teach
Hmm.
families how to be generous, for selfish reasons, because it's going to improve their quality of life. You know how that goes. Like
Yeah.
it's better to be. A lot of times, it's more fun to be the gift giver than the gift receiver. To
Yeah.
watch you open the gift of something I gave you, there's probably actually even more joy in that than receiving. And
Hmm.
it's that type of relationship I want our families to have with their money. Hold it with a very open hand and understand the gift that is generosity. And so that's the goal. And the only
I love
reason
that.
I throw out like a 5 or a 10 billion is because why not? Like
Yeah.
if we can do it, why wouldn't we want to do it? Like I just think growth is fun. I think challenges are fun. And who knows? Maybe it's 100 billion. I have no idea. Um,
Yeah.
but
Spoken like
we're,
a true CEO right there. Just keep on going.
why not? I literally just
It's
said that to
awesome.
one of my marketing people. I just said I don't ever foresee us not marketing because that sounds boring.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No, that's great. What a cool goal. And I agree. I mean, and obviously I know your heart and that we've talked a lot about that of just it's life changing when you can give and give freely and it's so fun. So
yeah.
kudos to you. That's such a cool goal and I love how you frame it. So what about personally? Anything big going on the personal front? You guys, anything you can think of? Or you're tracking
Um,
this year?
yeah, I this is going to sound really ridiculous, but like when we moved into a home about 4.5 years ago, and one of the promises I made when we moved into the house with my wife was it didn't fit check all of her boxes, and I said eventually we'll be able to kind of do what we need to do to the home so that it checks the boxes that you want. And so we've got a big rental going on this year, and so personally, I want to be able to do that for her, something that I had
Hmm.
promised. And obviously, some of the growth and success we've had here at Fiat is going to be able to help that. But the big thing for me, Erica, is I've got a 15-year-old son who's now
Mm.
driving. I've got an
Oh
11-year-old
man.
son at home, and so the personal always shies into the professional.
Yep.
Being able to show up at home the way that I want to be able to show up at home, knowing that I'm a snap and my oldest is going to be out of the house, and so can't put exact quantifiable, like what that looks like for me as far as a goal is concerned, but that balance of, we've been in hyper growth mode, and Fiat has rightfully taken a lot of my time. And if you're a really good business owner, the best way you can gauge that, in my opinion, is how important are you to the business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a tough ego thing, right? Because part of your ego, you want to feel important, but if you're that important to the business, you don't have a business, you are the business. And so I'm trying to balance that ego that I have of like, I want to feel important here, but I also want the company to be able to run without me, so that I can show up at home, I can coach baseball, I can go on the vacations that my family, that kind of stuff. And so it's that continued goal at home of, I want to get that renovation done for my wife, and continue to show up at home.
Yeah, the integration of the work-life
Which I'm bad at, by the way,
situation.
to be very clear.
Well, no, I think people
I
use the
love to
word
work.
balance a lot. I know, and I think people use balance, and I don't love that term, because I don't think it's like that. It's this like give and a take constantly, right? Like there are some seasons where it's okay to be heavy in the work season, and then there's seasons where the home, you are needed. And to your point, if you can be a good CEO, you could be able to create space for that on both fronts. So best of luck to you in the teeter-totter. It's a beautiful thing, and kudos to you, and I hope that you get that done for your wife. Speaking from a wife's perspective, that's awesome when your husband pulls through like that. So good work.
I'm trying.
Yes. So thank you so much just for your time today and being on here and just sharing your wisdom. I think, again, you've just been an incredible client, and I learn from you every time that we meet and every time we discuss. And I also just admire your desire to grow and not be a statistic at the end of the day. So hopefully some other people learn something too. But again, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, shameless plug. Like, you're a big part of that, right? I told you FMO is a really important business partner, and they are. You're a really important part of the story. Finding you 3 years ago, whatever it was, not knowing you existed ahead of time. One of the reasons we're able to continue to even think about scaling is because we know our data, and it's you and your team that are behind that story. So appreciate that.
Well, good. That's our goal. Thanks, man. Okay. Have a great day. Thanks.
Bye.